Senator Franken.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing on rare and neglected pediatric diseases. This is an issue that touches the lives of thousands of Minnesotans, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses, one of whom has worked at the University of Minnesota. Every day I receive letters from Minnesotans of all ages who suffer from rare or understudied conditions and who have little or no prospect for care. The most heartbreaking stories are about kids. Children with little known diseases that have been frozen in time. Decades have gone by and there's still been no progress on new treatments. And I also hear the stories of kids with conditions that we do have treatments for, but the therapies or devices they need aren't covered yet by insurance. We need to do more for all of these cases. I'm heartened by the progress brought by laws like the Orphan Drug Act and the Pediatric Medical Device Safety Act, and I want to thank my senior colleagues on the committee who have championed these bills. Today I'm interested in learning what the next steps are so we can develop treatments more quickly and make sure that they reach kids who need them the most. For example, many of the humanitarian use devices now available have come from companies with Minnesota ties, a fact that all Minnesotans are proud of. But I'm concerned that we still don't have equivalent incentives for devices as we do have for drugs, and I think we can do more, and I look forward to exploring this issue with the panel. The fact is that here in Congress we have lots of disease-specific bills that try to bring resources to these rare and neglected diseases. These bills are worthwhile, but it's a real challenge because there are thousands of these diseases. I believe there has to be a better way to make sure our scientific infrastructure and financial incentives produce treatments for both prevalent and rare diseases, and I look forward to hearing from the panel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Franken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both of you gentlemen for your testimony. And this is to both of you. There seem to be significant differences between the incentives for developing orphan drugs on the one hand and humanitarian use medical devices on the other. Could either or both of you please comment on these differences?
Yeah, well, I think, we do operate under the laws that we have. And, I would say it's good that it has been recognized that devices intended for small populations and rare diseases face some of the same economic and development challenges that drugs do. And so this is recognized in the humanitarian device legislation. So I think it's good that that's recognized, and it is having an effect. We're seeing, I think there's been about 50 devices approved under the humanitarian device exemption, so that's good. Drugs and devices are different, so it's understandable that you have some differences in this legislation. But I would say many of the challenges, are the same, and we.
What are some differences that you see? For example, I know that a drug developed under this system it has a long life, and so the patent on it is valuable.
Right.
But the devices tend to have a shorter life, so that's a difference, isn't it?
That's right. One of the very exciting and interesting things about the device development process is they tend to be frequently improved. There's a lot of innovation around the engineering and technology.
So you don't have quite the same incentive.
So
I'm trying to find.
Right. And the original approval paradigms are different, so that, for example, the major incentive in the orphan program of the additional exclusivity, is not applied to devices. So I think that's definitely one difference there.
I'm proud that many humanitarian use devices have been generated by companies with Minnesota ties. But I think they could do more under the right conditions. And I'd like to ask GAO to look into this issue further and do a thorough analysis of how the incentives in the drug industry compare to those in the device industry. And we need to make sure that we're getting, doing all we can to get devices to the kids who need them. And I'll be following up with the GAO shortly to pursue this question. And I look forward to revisiting the issue with the committee. Dr. Goodmacher, I'm sorry, but I want to ask you a specific question. I was pleased to work with Senator Brown to request appropriations for research on epidural bullosa, which is a terrible genetic disease, skin disease that affects about 30,000 Americans, mostly children. But in reality, we can't do a separate request for each disease. In Congress, we hear from many groups advocating for progress on rare disease, parents, family members, and patients themselves, and there are a lot of disease-specific bills to advance research on these rare conditions, which is difficult because there are really so many of them, really thousands. Would you agree that we need more of an overarching plan for rare and neglected diseases to enable the basic science and clinical research for the diseases? And if so, what do you think that would look like or should look like?
I think we already have some elements of such a plan, and I think it is the way to approach this, because what one really wants to be able to do is to follow the scientific opportunities, the ones that are most likely to be able to make advances. And sometimes, particularly when one's talking about basic science, you're not even exactly sure where it's going to lead, what disease it's going to have an impact on, for instance. So I think having both funding and programs in place that allows one to look broadly across rare diseases. Many rare diseases do have relationships to others, so that sometimes one can make an advance in one area that also goes to benefit another. I think that one needs to follow the scientific opportunities. I think also, though, that there increasingly have been partnerships between, for instance, the NIH and various specific disease advocacy organizations and groups looking at creative ways together and moving forward research in that area. And that can be very important, not simply in terms of providing resources, though that is helpful, but also often bringing together communities of researchers who may not be paying attention to a specific disease. The public advocacy groups, the patients themselves, in working in concert with the NIH and the FDA, can often make real progress that neither could make by themselves. So sometimes it's programs, and often it's simply relationships and having discussions and making sure that one is getting the perspectives of multiple groups involved in doing it.
Yeah.
I would like to add an example to that, if possible. One of the things we can do, and we've done with our colleagues at NIH, it's involved patient groups, product developers, is where we see an area where the science isn't all there yet, but there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of innovation, people have new products. We will frequently hold workshops that are essentially bring all the developers together, all the scientists, basic and applied, the clinicians, and say, what is the best approach to moving this field forward? For example, we've done this in a number of areas of stem cells. So if we want to investigate stem cells for cancer, for heart disease, for replacing insulin in diabetes, to get islet cells, for example, what are the things, build in up front, what are the things we're going to need to know at FDA? What are the tools the scientific community needs and the issues they need to resolve to say, does this work? Can we make this product in a way that can be a real product that helps people? So we have quite a number of these workshops that advance this applied science that really bridges to get the products to patients. And I think we need to be much more strategic and have that be our normal practice rather than the exception.
Thank you.